there, and welcome to Grim Wit with Dimwits. I'm Blondie.
And I'm T.
And how are we doing this fine day, T?
You know how I'm doing this not so fine day.
That's why I phrased it that way.
Being sarcastic.
I am, because I know you are just a little tad frustrated.
You know how much I hate technology. I never want to be on a computer. It is not my favorite thing. And my computer is really pissing me off.
Be thankful, though. I mean, we could still have dial-up.
That's true. Remember that?
Remember that?
You're doing it too nice. It was...
Well, I sounded like I was going to hog a loogie, so... But we're up and running, obviously.
We are. Let's do this. I'm all bitter. I'm all...
So if you feel daggers coming through your speakers, it's okay. Just duck.
It's going to add to the story for sure.
I'm sure it will. What do we got going on this week?
Well, this week I saw a story and everything about it was just so really unbelievable. Like, you know, you watch a story and you're just like, how in the world are people capable of such things? And that's what I felt like when I saw this story. So have you ever heard of matricide?
I have heard of it, but for the life of me, can't remember what it is.
So matricide is when you kill your mother.
So a child kills her mother.
It doesn't have to be a child. It could be anybody who kills their mother. You just kill your mother. That's called matricide.
Okay.
And it's totally unfathomable for most people, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But it happens. It happens a lot more than we think it does. In fact, I looked up some history on it just because I was curious. And I found so many results regarding matricide. And so I thought, okay, the story is about matricide. I'm going to include a few little interesting notes that I found about matricide cases.
I'm buckled up. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. These people are wild. So let's go way back because I thought some of these were really interesting. And let's let the grim begin. Cleopatra III of Egypt was assassinated in 101 BC by order of her son, Ptolemy X, in order for him to succeed the throne. He was in conspiracy with his wife, Berenice III, who was also Cleopatra III's granddaughter. So he wants to kill his mom. She's cool with killing her grandma. And they're related in all kinds of ways. So this is just incestual corruption.
Well, I guess they believe in keeping it in the family?
I guess so. Many bad apples fell from that tree. Now, let's go to the next story. Berenice III now, same one, was then murdered in 80 BC, shortly after marrying Ptolemy XI. So she went from the 10th to the 11th, who was her younger half-brother and former stepson.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And so she married him even though she was his stepmother and his half-sister. But then I guess her subjects got pissed off about this. They cornered good old Ptolemy XI at the gym and killed him 19 days later in response to her murder.
Wow. I guess there's no arrest and trial at this point in time.
It was crazy back then. I am so glad it wasn't around. These are crazy.
Now I'm envisioning the family tree being more of a family tumbleweed, just keeps going around and around and around.
With all the prickles in it.
Right.
Next story is Jack Gilbert Graham killed his mother along with 43 other people by planting a dynamite bomb in his mother's suitcase, which was subsequently loaded aboard United Airlines Flight 629 in 1955. So obviously he did that to cover his tracks. But dang, 42 other people had to die as well? I mean, that is so beyond cold-hearted.
That's definite hatred.
Anthony Bakeland murdered his mother, Barbara Daly Bakeland, in 1972 at their luxurious apartment in London. She had allegedly raped him in order to cure his homosexuality. So if that's actually what she did to him, these people had some very twisted responses to resolving their family issues.
It sounds like it. And couldn't you just hire someone to do that?
To rape him?
Well, not rape him, but have sex with him, I'm thinking.
How about you just let him be gay? How about that?
Instead of her going down that route, couldn't she have, if that's what her ultimate goal was, why couldn't she just hire someone?
That's too twisted for me to even make a comment about. I'm like, I just said it because I thought it was interesting, but I don't really want to dive in on that one.
Moving along.
Convicted serial killer and fellow Californian, Ed Kemper, beat his mother to death with a hammer in 1973. He then slit her throat, decapitated her, and cut off her hands. He also removed her larynx and put it down the garbage disposal. I don't think it was any coincidence that he demolished her voice box in the disposal. I'm going to guess that was a bit of a nagging revenge.
And there was some definite rage there.
Oh, yeah. That guy is a stone cold serial killer for sure. We're going to have to do a story about him at some point.
Okay, add it to the list.
Now, I thought this was particularly interesting because this type of matricide was supposedly done out of love. In the Battle of Okinawa, 1945, there are accounts in which Okinawans killed their mothers to prevent them from being captured, raped, or tortured by the invading American forces. I was a little shocked by this on both sides. First off, how do you kill your own mother who you think you're protecting by doing so? And literally, how do you kill your mother? This is horrifying.
How do you justify that? I still...
It didn't get into it. I didn't really dive in either, but how did they do it? What kind of mercy kill is acceptable is what I'm trying to say. Secondly, I don't really know much about this battle, but until now, I didn't realize that this type of savagery from Americans towards women was anticipated in this war. That breaks my heart. It really is sad.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful.
Now let's get to this particular case. According to her friends, Sheila Von Wiese was a very genuine and warm person who loved to travel the world. She was a fabulous hostess and enjoyed being around people and having parties to bring people together. She loved good food, good wine, and good conversation with her friends. She really does sound like a lovely lady.
We could totally be friends with her.
Completely. One day while mixing with Chicago's upper crust, Sheila meets musician James Mack, and they instantly hit it off. James Mack was a conductor, composer, producer, and arranger who worked on more than 60 albums with various top artists of the time. He was very successful, amazingly talented, and a very big deal in the jazz community and the music community at large. Despite James being 22 years older than Sheila, all her friends thought they were a perfect match. Their romance took off and they got married. Sheila moved in with James into his beautiful Oak Park home in a very nice area outside of Chicago. This sounds like a beautiful romance for two very successful people. Now, I normally wouldn't make a point to mention it, but race does play a part in this story. So in order for some of this to make sense to our listeners, they need to know that James is black and Sheila is white, and they're happily in love. In 1995, James and Sheila welcomed a precious baby girl, Heather. She quickly steals her parents' hearts. Being their only child together, little Heather was very spoiled and got whatever she wanted, including extravagant family vacations every year, because Sheila wanted Heather to travel the world. There were pictures of Heather on every surface in their beautiful home. She was loved very much by her parents. You could barely walk through her bedroom because it was stuffed with expensive toys. As the years went by, it was obvious that Heather had a special bond with her father. They both loved the arts, and this connected them so much that Heather claimed her father, James, was her best friend.
Oh, so cute. Daddy's little girl.
That's precious. I love when that happens. Then in 2001, while on one of their luxurious vacations aboard a cruise ship, something terrible happened. James was on a pool ladder and he cut his foot on a sharp edge. Within 36 hours, he became extremely ill and had to be hospitalized. His foot became so infected that it almost killed him because the infection led to his entire spinal cord being filled with pus. Following this, He wasn't the same person that he had been before, and now he was confined to a wheelchair. He ends up suing the cruise line and is eventually awarded $1.5 million. But the illness and its limitations detrimentally changed the dynamic between father and daughter. I can only imagine his pain, and the wheelchair must have really impacted his enthusiasm. It's such a tragic story.
I have to wonder what kind of bacteria was in this pool for him to be infected so quickly and so drastically.
I don't know.
Seems pretty intense. And I feel bad. You're right, especially since they are a very dynamic family and they love to go traveling. It's very tragic.
Very. This accident also changed the relationship that Heather had with her mother because she was angry a lot and acted out now that she no longer had her father to lean on. Not only did James' illness change his relationship with Heather, but it also changed his relationship with Sheila now that he depended on her for everything. You know, it sounds like a lot of frustration building up for the whole family.
So much.
Very sad. Over the next 5 years, James' health worsened and he was diagnosed with colon cancer. Sheila was devastated, but felt like maybe another family vacation would bring some joy. So she booked a trip for them to all go to Greece in 2006. You know, I kind of get where Sheila's going with this, but this had to be a lot for poor James. You know, the man is very ill. But maybe she knew that and was trying to make one last great memory for them. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt.
I totally agree with you on this one. It sounds like she knew the end might be near. Plus, he was 22 years older than her. So
Very true.
He had the age on her. And that poor guy can't catch a break.
Well, it sounds like he was doing fine till that pool incident.
Downhill after that.
When they got to Athens, James was not feeling well, so Sheila went out and left Heather alone with James. Tragically, while she was gone, James died. There was a blood clot in his lung and he stopped breathing while 10-year-old Heather was by his side. He was 76 years old. I feel so bad for the whole family, but I will say that had to mess up poor Heather seeing her dad die and not having her mom there to help her.
Especially since they were so close. But I don't understand. If he's not feeling well, why would she go out?
It doesn't say where she went. I don't know if she went to pick something up or if she actually went out. It doesn't say.
It's just interesting.
The sudden death of James Mack has a devastating effect on the mother-daughter relationship because Heather claimed her dad never wanted to go on this trip, and her mother made him go. So in Heather's mind, Sheila is why her dad, who was also her best friend, died. Sheila had no idea the fallout that would come between her and her daughter following her husband's death. Anger, rage, resentment, and deep hatred were building inside Heather. Some think that this hatred of her mother was exacerbated by the racial divide building in Heather's mind. Even her mother's blonde hair and blue eyes fed the disconnect between them as Heather looked more like her father. These physical differences became more apparent during this time.
I get her anger. Even at 10 years old, she probably didn't realize that her father was older with everything he was going through. It was only a matter of time, vacation or not.
Very true. And you're right. I'm sure they're not focusing on how old he is. She's still a kid.
Right. She just sees him as her hero.
Yeah, that's just her dad. As time went on, Heather's hatred towards her mom became increasingly out of control, and she was violent toward her many times. By the time Heather got to high school, she was very resentful of her mother's attempts to discipline her. Heather's attitude was that she didn't do anything she didn't feel like doing. The police became very familiar with the house in Oak Park, as they were called there more than 80 times.
80 times.
Right?
They're on speed dial at that point.
I have never called the cops to my home, so that's crazy to me.
Yeah, 80 times. Wow.
Sheila would call the police for everything, even if Heather missed school, or she was late for a dance class, or if they argued over money. So sadly, it sounds like Sheila has lost control, and she expects the police to parent her now wild child. That's not their job, and the fact that she thought it was is kind of crazy.
At this point, I don't think Sheila is going to get control back at all.
But she's the one that kind of created the problem.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
She needs to fix it.
Yeah, but you're talking to a teenager at this point.
It don't matter. You're still the mom.
Sounds like that's not her forte.
No, it sounds like she's better at parties.
Right.
In February 2011, the police arrested Heather on suspicion of breaking her mother's arm by pushing her down the stairs. But Sheila doesn't press charges because she fears that she would be perceived as a failed mother. Come on, Sheila. I mean, she's more worried about what people think than trying to get her daughter under control and keep herself safe. I don't get it.
Sometimes perception is everything, and she's enabling her at this point.
And in reality, perception is nothing.
No, absolutely not.
Then 2 months later, Sheila documents and takes photos of another assault by Heather. You should have seen these photos. There were huge purple and blue bruises on her arms where it looked like Heather held her down really viciously, and another huge, and I'm talking huge, bruise on her thigh that looked like she was kicked hard. There's no way that could have happened by an arm or a fist. It was too big. Heather was beating the hell out of her mom.
Sounds like it.
Heather sent Sheila a couple of emails claiming that she has demons inside of her and she can't control them. And at this point, Heather had been arrested 3 times for domestic battery against her mother. It sounds like Heather is looking for sympathy with the whole I got demons thing, and she's looking for a get out of jail free card.
I'd be interested to know the sizes of Sheila and Heather, if they were close in size, because that's just a huge amount of rage to cause injuries like that. And the demon thing, you're right. I think that's just an excuse.
It's an excuse. I think as Heather got older, because when you see her on videos with her mom later, I think she's 18 or 19, she's a little taller than her mom. Her mom she's not tiny, but she's a little petite.
So she had the upper hand.
Yeah, she definitely had the upper hand. But following her arrest, Heather posted a Vine video while sitting outside of a juvenile courtroom talking about how much she hated the police. But Sheila would get Heather released every time and never wanted to press charges against her. She didn't want Heather harmed in jail, even though Heather had been harming her. It got so bad that mental health evaluations were ordered, and Heather definitely had some mental health challenges. I mean, yeah, she claims to have demons. True or not, that's not normal.
No. And I don't know. I think a night in jail or a mental health facility might have done Heather some good. See some repercussions for her actions. Although the way she was growing up, she might not even recognize what they are.
I doubt it. Sounds like she was just given everything she wanted.
Wow.
Even after getting in trouble, Heather never slows down her rebellion and even becomes very promiscuous and is impregnated twice, but never becomes a mom. Heather just wanted to spend all her time with her friends and partying. When Heather is 18 years old, she meets a guy by the name of Tommy Schaefer. Tommy was 2 years older, and he also grew up in Chicago, but he grew up on the other side of the tracks. Tommy doesn't grow up with much and is a wannabe musician and rapper, so he can live a rich and lavish lifestyle.
Because every rapper in the world lives one of those?
Yeah. Goals, right? But Sheila didn't care for Heather's new boyfriend. She felt that he was a bad influence.
A bad influence sounds like Heather is one of those all on her own.
You look up bad influence, there's Heather's picture in the dictionary.
Right.
Jiminy Christmas. In order to party, Heather and Tommy would constantly steal Sheila's credit cards and run up big bills. This had been a recurring problem between Heather and Sheila, as Heather was paying for things for all her friends on her mom's dime. Heather felt entitled to the money because her father had left her a large inheritance, but technically she couldn't get to it till she was 21. Thank goodness she didn't have access at 18. But on the other hand, this may have changed this whole case, because all Heather wanted in the end was the money.
It sounds like it. Sheila needs to hide those things.
Yeah, I don't understand how Sheila doesn't figure some stuff out. It's not that hard.
No.
Sheila disliked Tommy so much that she even moved herself and Heather into the city to put distance between them. But Heather would vanish for days at a time to see Tommy.
Is Heather still in high school at this point?
Well, she's 18, so I don't know if she is or not.
Okay, but she's 18.
She's 18. I mean, if that was my kid, I'd be like, you want to be out for days? Then you can be out forever. Bye-bye.
Leave my credit cards.
Right. Change the locks. You don't have to worry about that. Sheila would go searching for Heather and would usually find her in a hotel room with Tommy and a bunch of her friends. At one point, Sheila even had the group arrested and put in jail for the night. I'm sure that pissed off Heather the heathen something fierce.
Yeah, but she had it coming.
She'd be like, Mom, you're embarrassing me right now.
I know, in front of my friends. What are you thinking?
All my friends, because we're stealing money from you. At this point, Sheila doesn't know how to fix her relationship with Heather. I think that's pretty obvious.
That ship sailed.
So she resorts to what she knows best, a family vacation for her and her daughter to heal and reconnect.
I'm sorry. I realize it's a tragedy what's happening at this point, but dude.
Yeah. Come on, Sheila. There's other things to do. And I will say that considering how tragic this worked out for her last time she used this as a fix-all, I'm surprised she would even consider doing this again.
She didn't live and learn, apparently.
Nope, that's the answer to everything. But you have to check out what she does.
Okay.
So Sheila books a luxurious 10-night stay in one of the world's most exotic locations, the Indonesian island of Bali. I've always wanted to go there.
Ooh, I'm excited. I'm going. Go ahead. Continue.
But before leaving, Sheila admits to a number of people that she knows this is a risk and could be dangerous for her to be alone with Heather. She's aware that her daughter is very sick and needs help. So my question is, why does she keep putting this dang vacation Band-Aid on everything? It's like that's all she knows how to do. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's extremely odd.
And if you're going to spend that kind of money, why not spend it on something that could really help her? She obviously has a bad feeling. I mean, that's a mother's intuition. Have her tested or something.
Well, she already did. She already had her tested and she already knows she's mentally unstable.
Well, why not put her in a facility until she can figure stuff out?
Yeah, let the professionals work with her and maybe she would even get better. Who knows? But taking her on vacation is like letting a tiger loose. You know what I mean? You don't know what she's capable of.
Oh, no, especially in another country.
Yeah, exactly. Despite her apprehension, Sheila plans a dream vacation for them and spares no expense. She books them at the 5-star St. Regis Resort. Their lavish room even included a private pool and their own butler who's available 24 hours a day. The King of Saudi Arabia had even rented the entire place at one point. Nothing but the best. I am slightly impressed with all this. I'm not going to lie.
It does, though, sound like she's rewarding her for bad behavior. But I want to go.
Me too. I'll be nice to you, Sheila.
That's right.
When they first arrived in Bali, they seemed to be having a really good time and possibly even rebuilding their relationship. They look like a happy mother-daughter pair having the time of their lives.
Ooh, I'm getting that calm before the storm vibe.
Right? How come Sheila didn't realize this is not their norm and didn't be like, I need to sleep with one eye open?
Just because you go across country doesn't mean a switch flips.
No. After midnight on August 12th, Sheila discovers that Heather isn't with her in their room. She becomes frantic and goes downstairs to ask the front desk if anyone has seen her. It's at this point that Sheila discovers that there's actually a second room booked at the resort under her credit card, and the name on the second room is under Heather's boyfriend's name, Tommy Schaefer. Sheila is pissed.
Oh, you think?
Yeah. Tommy is the main reason that Sheila took Heather to the other side of the world to get away from him. Now she knows that Heather snuck Tommy there and again on her dime. Then she's even more enraged to find that Heather booked Tommy, get this, a $12,000 first-class ticket to Bali.
Oh, my God.
I would have lost my mind, too. That is so insane.
That's crazy. I'm kind of impressed that she can make all these reservations on the down low so easily. I mean,
I don't know that I'm impressed. I'm just like, what the heck, Sheila?
She apparently doesn't look at her statements.
No, she doesn't. So Sheila decides to have the front desk call the room. What? I would have went up there myself and tell Heather to get downstairs immediately. Now, see, that's Sheila being Sheila right there. Instead of handling it herself, she had other people do it for her. She's ridiculous.
Gone up there and pulled her out by her hair.
Hell yeah. I would have grabbed an eyeball too. I would have been so mad. I'd been like, get out here. The two have a very heated argument right there in the lobby, according to the staff. After they get to the room, Sheila tries to sleep. Heather keeps texting Tommy, and the two young lovers have absolutely no plans to sleep. There's work to be done. Now, first off, if that were me, I wouldn't trust myself in the same room as my kid after learning what she had done. That $12,000 would, I would have lost it. I would hire her a personal bodyguard at least until I calm down. Secondly, wouldn't you have taken her cell phone away?
Oh, absolutely.
I would have thrown it straight into that private pool or had the butler stomp it to smithereens. I mean, what the hell, lady?
I would like to see that.
I've done it.
I know, I've heard about it. And between laughing, I was a little scared.
Yeah, I was a little scared too. I was like, I've lost my mind.
Those demons you got going on.
It's called a mother's love.
Okay. That's what you tell the police. So, and honestly, I would have told her, go back to the room with Tommy. Then I would have gone back to my room, packed, canceled credit cards, and gotten the heck out of Dodge and let them fend for themselves.
Oh, hell yeah. Wouldn't you have gotten on with the airlines and canceled his flight back?
Oh, I would have canceled everything.
Resolved her problem right there.
I would have checked him out of his room and just disappeared.
Yep. I'd been like, you got yourself here, get yourself home. Not my problem.
And you can take my daughter with you.
That's right. Have fun. 8 days into their vacation, Bali police come upon a horrifying sight. They discover a body stuffed into an abandoned suitcase right outside of the St. Regis Resort. A taxi driver claims the bag was abandoned after a couple dropped it into his trunk and never returned. After an hour of waiting, he went to remove the suitcase and noticed blood, bloody skin, and blonde hair sticking out of it, so he immediately called the police. The driver hadn't seen it before because the couple had insisted on no assistance, even pushing him away and telling him no when he tried to grab it. Then they loaded it into the trunk themselves, even though they struggled with how heavy it appeared. The taxi driver had thought this was very odd, but he didn't question them. They told him to wait while they checked out. Then they never returned. Well, that's taking stiffing a driver to a new level. Sorry, it was there. I couldn't resist.
All right, dad joke queen.
The woman in the suitcase had been brutally beaten, mostly about her face and head. There was blunt force injury to her nose, resulting in nasal fractures and fractures in her upper jawbone on both sides. These types of fractures blocked the respiratory tract so that the victim couldn't breathe, and she ultimately died of suffocation by drowning in her own blood. She had defensive wounds on her hands and arms as she tried to unsuccessfully fight her attacker off. You know, I just hope she never realized who it was who was attacking her and trying to kill her.
I'm sure she knew exactly who it was. She did let her friends know the trip was going to be dangerous. I mean, she had to have some idea.
Yeah. This discovery was highly unusual and very shocking to the Balinese police department. This type of violence is highly unusual in Bali. With no leads, the investigators pull the CCTV video footage, and just as the driver claimed, they see a young couple load the bag, then disappear. The police check the guest list to see who's staying in the hotel. Apparently, when you check in, they take a photocopy of your passport. That's interesting, right? Have you ever had any hotel do that?
No, not that I can remember.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. Even when we traveled during COVID, I think they just wrote our number down so they could contact us.
Yeah, that's what I remember. But this is interesting because if it's an unusual event in Bali to have things like this happen, why keep pictures?
Well, I thought maybe they took a picture of it in case they lost their passport.
No, that's a good point.
I mean, otherwise, why would you even give them your passport? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the police, through a process of elimination, figure out that the only person unaccounted for that fits a description is 62-year-old Sheila Von Wiese-Mack. After reviewing the video, investigators are quickly able to conclude that the couple who dropped off the suitcase are Heather Mack and Tommy Schaefer. Intrigued, they review the video from the day of the murder to see what else happens after they abandon the bloody suitcase. They find much more than they had hoped for. After leaving the suitcase, Heather and Tommy are told by staff that they can't leave because their bill has to be paid and they can't get in touch with Sheila. So they say they're going back to their room, but instead they detour through the hotel garden, ditch the luggage in the flower beds, and go running off into the trails toward the back of the property where the beach is. Then they got on the road, held a taxi, and took off.
Wow.
Pretty ballsy. While police have a body and persons of interest, they don't have a crime scene yet, and they don't know where or how Sheila was killed. Naturally, they start with Sheila and Heather's room. What they find is horrifying. There clearly had been a violent struggle in this room because there's blood literally everywhere. They find an important piece of the puzzle when they see a broken, very heavy fruit bowl at the scene. They also discovered Heather Mack's passport, so they knew that she must still be in Bali.
Well, that's definitely the first place I'd look. But now you have two dumb, violent teenagers running around that can't escape.
I know, what's worse, right? Police immediately issue a bolo, or a be on the lookout, for the couple. Bali is not a huge place. During their manhunt, they receive a tip that the couple is staying at a budget hotel not very far from the St. Regis. Heather and Tommy did not make it very difficult to find them because they checked into that hotel using their real names and, of course, Sheila's credit cards to pay for the room. Their code names should have been Dumb and Dumber.
See, I called it.
Officers close in on the hotel, announcing themselves as housekeeping, and Tommy opens the door. They arrest him with absolutely no resistance. 19-year-old Heather Mack is also arrested, and it's interesting to see Heather on video being taken in. She's smiling and kind of squealing with delight like a child as she's calling the paparazzi crazy mother. It's like she truly doesn't comprehend the seriousness of this. And it really is hard to watch this little video of her because I just want to reach out and smack the hell out of her for smiling.
Oh, I'm sure she'll get plenty of that in jail. That smile won't be on there for long.
Oh, you might be disappointed.
Oh.
They are officially prisoners at this point, and detained by the police in Bali. You see Heather in a room by herself, and when she sees the camera, she puts her arm up and she says, "No cameras, no cameras." It seems like suddenly she's aware that she's really in trouble. The news quickly reaches the States. Sheila's friends are shocked about the bizarre and crazy story of her murder, especially when they find out that Heather was a suspect.
Even after she kind of gave him a heads up?
Yeah. I mean, I guess people always think they're capable of so much, but, not everything.
True.
When the police start to question the couple, they not only deny their involvement in Sheila's murder, but they claim that the only reason they ran away was to escape the real killers. They said they were all three attacked by gang members that wanted to rob them. Luckily, Heather and Tommy were able to escape, but unfortunately, Sheila was not.
I'm sorry I keep laughing. I'm really sorry, but
it's the ridiculousness that they thought this was all believable.
Exactly.
When asked why they didn't go to authorities, they said that they were afraid for their lives. The police took their cell phones and find a treasure trove of information. Hey, people, 3 words. Delete, delete, delete.
And yeah, didn't they spend the night texting each other once Sheila found out Tommy was there?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Messages indicate that after Tommy arrived in Bali, He texted Heather to let her know he was there. His room was on the 6th floor, and Heather and Sheila's room was on the 3rd floor. It was after midnight, and the video shows Heather going up to Tommy's room, and then they're seen wandering around the resort. At 2:45 a.m., they both go back to their own rooms but continue texting. Their text messages were about how they were confused as to why Sheila was still not sound asleep. So they meet up again at about 3:15 a.m., but Heather goes straight to Tommy's room. Shortly after, Sheila wakes up and panics when she doesn't see Heather. One little comment. Heather's 19 at this point, and she's a freaking troublemaker. Why does Sheila continually panic every time Heather's not around?
Yeah, that's not a trait of a mother who's been mothering all her life.
It's too much. It's like, why you keep chasing this girl? She doesn't want to be chased.
Let her go.
Yeah, seriously. So she walks around the resort, I'm talking about Sheila now, looking for Heather, and ends up in the lobby to speak to someone at the check-in counter. This is when she finds out about Tommy being in the hotel and about the $12,000 first-class ticket. You can see how upset she is on the video.
I am surprised that she's so upset.
I'm surprised she's so surprised. Oh. Heather has been called from Tommy's room and comes walking into the lobby to meet her mother, and the heated exchange is also caught on camera. According to the staff, Sheila is upset enough to reach out and grab Heather by the arm and start to pull on her. And you can see this in the video. You can see how upset Sheila is and that she kind of gets a little bit aggressive with her. Heather looks a little bit surprised by her mom and pulls back a little bit, but eventually submits. Then together they walk back to their room. This confrontation is seemingly the final straw for Heather. You know, in the video, Heather just looks annoyed by all of this, but not really too concerned about her mom's anger.
But you know what I do find interesting is once her mom showed the anger and started being a little aggressive, I'm not saying she wants to hurt her, but being a little aggressive towards her, like, no, you're coming, she does concede. So
Yeah.
the ability to change her was there. It just, Sheila needed to step up.
She needed to be more consistent about it, and I think the problem at this point is that Heather doesn't respect her mother.
And it sounds like she hadn't for years.
Yeah. Between the hours of 4 a.m. and 8 a.m., Tommy is continually texting Heather about killing Sheila. He's sending texts that say, "Let me just creep up and whack her." And Heather responds by saying, "Okay, just knock her out. It'll be so much easier." The texts continue, and the teen lovers' ideas soon reach a chilling point as they go on and on about waiting till she goes to sleep and how they're going to kill her. They needed a really heavy weapon to hit her over the head, but they also discussed trying to drown her and make it look like an accident. But then Tommy looks around his room and sees a very heavy glass fruit bowl with metal handles. He takes a picture of it and sends it to Heather and says he can kill Sheila with that. They continue on, very matter of fact, back and forth about the killing. While texting how exactly they need to murder Heather's mom, they're being very affectionate towards each other, and they're playfully calling each other Bonnie and Clyde. At one point, Tommy even says, "Relax, you're Bonnie. You can do this."
I wonder even once if they thought about the big picture.
I don't think so. It doesn't sound like they're scared of anything.
It's that whole hyper-focused on your phone, and that's your world right there. They're not pulling their heads up and looking around going, oh, well, this may happen. That may happen.
Right. Well, and that goes to show their immaturity, their cruelty, and their callousness.
True.
Heather tells Tommy that while attacking her mother, he's got to be relentless, even if she's mad. Tommy responds by telling Heather to try your best. Can you whack her in the head with a big-ass pole? What?
Okay.
I mean, he's obviously trying to get Heather to participate in this as well. Maybe he is thinking about, we need to do this together because if I get in trouble, you need to be right there with me.
If I'm going down, you're going with me.
Yeah. Or you need to have my back. But she responds with, can you? He then says, yes, Come in the hallway right now. She says, too dangerous not to do it. You've got to come in. And he says, here I come. These text messages are solid proof that they, without a doubt, planned this murder.
Without a doubt.
Then the video shows Tommy leaving his room with something big hidden under his shirt, but it's obvious and sticking pretty far out. Tommy sneaks into Sheila's room and hides in the bathroom. Sheila has no idea he's there. When Sheila finally fell asleep with her back turned, Tommy came up behind her and struck her in the head repeatedly with the heavy fruit bowl. Sheila was absolutely hammered in the face and skull more than a dozen times. It was a vicious attack.
I still don't get how people can do stuff like that.
It's mind-boggling. Then the couple stuffed Sheila's body into a suitcase, but it was hard to get it to close, so they broke her body in various places, and even then it was a struggle to get it shut. So Heather actually sat on the suitcase with her mother's dead and bloody body in it to force it closed. This really showed her level of commitment to follow through with their plans.
What the heck?
Yep.
Seriously.
And you remember when the driver said he saw bloody skin? She must have pinched her skin and hair in it to shut it, and still.
Yeah.
Ugh.
While sitting on it.
While sitting on it. Yeah. I'm sorry. There's a special place for people like that. Investigators claim that Tommy stated that the only reason he came to Bali was to break the news to Sheila that Heather was pregnant with his child. And after he told her, Sheila became violent and tried to attack him with a knife. This story was not believable because it was no secret that Heather's past was filled with promiscuity, which had led to 2 other pregnancies. And Sheila already knew for weeks that Heather was pregnant with Tommy's child even before they went on this vacation, because Sheila had mentioned it to her close friends. So Tommy's story makes no sense. But according to Tommy, Sheila hated him and had called him a derogatory name at one point, which is why he became so angry.
And that part was probably true, but I'm sure that when she did that, they were probably still in Chicago.
I don't even know if it's true because the derogatory name was racial.
Oh, well, maybe.
So I don't believe that's true.
But I do believe she hated him. She said she did.
Oh, absolutely. She absolutely hated him. He also claimed that Sheila flew into such a rage about the pregnancy that she threatened to cut the baby right out of Heather. Then she grabbed Tommy by the throat, and he had to defend himself. How ridiculous is that? I mean, Tommy is young, he's strong, and he's in great shape. So how could he ever be overpowered by a 62-year-old woman who's small enough to fit into a suitcase? Come on, Tommy. You should be embarrassed by this lie.
And he had to go to Bali. He couldn't have just confronted her about this in Chicago.
Exactly. The whole thing is absurd. Heather and Tommy were very excited about this child, but neither of them had their lives together and had no business bringing a baby into the world at this point, which is what Sheila was actually concerned with. In January 2015, Tommy and 2-month pregnant Heather are locked up in a Balinese prison awaiting trial for the premeditated murder of Sheila. The penalty if they are found guilty is death by firing squad. Hey, well, at least they might get my favorite method for the death penalty. It's better than electrocution.
They should have just done it in Chicago. That way they at least had a chance of life in prison.
Yeah, they didn't think anything through. Both of them pled not guilty at the outset of their trial, but with all the evidence, the prosecution's case looked pretty solid. They have witness statements from the hotel employees and the taxi driver. They also have a buttload of CCTV footage showing Tommy and Heather with the suitcase and their incriminating text messages to each other, proving that they planned each step of the murder for hours. In addition, it was revealed that not long before Heather's father's death, he had updated his will so that everything he owned would be left to Heather, despite her only being 10 years old at the time. She stood to gain $11 million from the estate once she turned 21.
That's a lot of money.
Yes, it is. But until then, Sheila was in charge of that fortune, and Heather made it known that she was sick of watching her mother spend her inheritance. She was sick of waiting and wanted all of it for herself.
Well, maybe if she acted like an adult and waited, life would have been great. Plus, wasn't she the one who spent that $12,000 of her inheritance on a first-class ticket? Yeah, I'm still stuck on that.
But that was for her boyfriend. That was
He
for her
needed to go-
boo.
He needed to go first class. He
Of
couldn't go in
course.
economy.
No, God forbid, or even business class.
Insanity of it all.
Yes, the immaturity. So when she started seeing Tommy, she told him that if they could get Sheila out of the picture, the two of them would have access to all the money. When Tommy agreed to help her kill her mom, Heather texted him and said, "You just gained $11 million." So she was manipulating him big time.
Sounds like it.
He responded by saying, "Feels like I'm in a dream when you said 11 million. Sounds too good to be true, LOL." And it definitely was, Tommy.
You know how dreams can turn into nightmares?
Exactly. Heather and Tommy fantasized about their lives together once she got access to her inheritance. It was going to change everything for them. You know, this way of thinking is so crazy to me because she was living an extravagantly wealthy dream life already. Her mom gave her everything, and she was 19 when she killed her. So another 2 years and she would have had every penny of it anyway. Why murder the person who gave you life? It makes no sense, other than the fact that you're just evil.
And you have no patience.
Well, that's just evil. During the trial, Heather suddenly changes her story and blames Tommy for all of it. She claimed that she had nothing to do with it and only went along out of fear for her own life. She says she was scared and stayed in the bathroom the whole time. According to her defense attorney, if Tommy had not ever come to Bali, this murder never would have happened. It's like they just don't want to acknowledge all the texts from Heather wanting her mom dead. Just ignore it and it will go away, right? Plus, she flew him in.
Those exact words were on the tip of my tongue.
3 months into Heather's trial, officials paused the proceedings for Heather to give birth to her and Tommy's daughter, Stella. In Indonesia, a prisoner's baby can stay with them in prison up to the age of 2 years old. That is so crazy. I mean, poor kid.
What?
Yeah. Well, wait till you hear about the prison. So,
Okay.
after nearly 4 months of trial, the young couple learned their fate. They're both found guilty of premeditated murder. Tommy was sentenced to 18 years in prison, and Heather was sentenced to 10 years. The reaction in the U.S. was that these were very light sentences for what this pair was accused of doing. The callousness, the coldness, the premeditation, the sentence absolutely outraged people in the U.S., especially Sheila's family and friends. Sheila's sister and brother felt Heather should have gotten way more time, especially being the mastermind for the murder.
I agree with them. That's nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Especially if she's 19.
Exactly. She still has a long life ahead of her filled with freedom. Prosecutors in the U.S. also make a surprise arrest of Tommy's cousin, Robert Bibbs, who was involved in planning the murder. He was helping them in trying to hire a hitman for $50,000 to kill Sheila.
Probably with Sheila's credit card.
Yeah, where else are they going to get it? Tommy and Robert talked extensively about many different ways that they could go about killing her. They were trying to find a way to do it so their hands wouldn't be dirty and it would appear to be a natural death or a suicide. On August 12, 2014, the day of the murder, Tommy writes to Robert, "Lord, forgive me, sweet Jesus, our Father. But for some reason, I don't feel bad." No words. Then Robert also admits to the FBI that he and Tommy had tried to kill Sheila earlier that year in Chicago with a drug overdose. He also confessed that he advised Tommy to just smother her to death. You know, their callousness is just jaw-dropping.
Well, if plan A doesn't work, here's plan B, C, D, etc.
This poor woman. She didn't have a chance.
She did not. I was just thinking the same thing. She did not stand a chance.
Robert was motivated by the money as well, but during his confessions, there's one person that he surprisingly does not incriminate, Heather Mack. He says Heather never made statements directly to him about wanting her mom killed. And I think it's like, yeah, she let Tommy do all the dirty work for her.
You're right. A manipulative little female dog.
Look at you. So edgy.
I know, aren't I?
Even while behind bars, Heather manages to make headlines that incense Sheila's family. News reports show Heather on video dancing and having fun in prison. She's wearing makeup, jewelry, nice clothes, and even has a cute little hairdo. Bali's prisons are very different from what we have here in the U.S. There's freedom to roam around, smoke, hang out, listen to music, and have a pretty good time. It's like a super laid-back party with a bunch of your equally jacked-up friends. There are very lax rules about conduct and socializing. Heather was even posting pictures of herself from prison to her social media. And in every one of them, she looks cute, she poses sexy in some, and she has a big smile on her face. She even videos herself talking about going to the beach that day. I would be outraged seeing someone who killed my family member in this never-ending party-like atmosphere.
And what about her daughter? I can only imagine what she's going through.
Doesn't even say at this point.
It's like an all-inclusive Club Med.
Exactly.
That you can't leave.
Exactly. Well, you can to go to the beach, apparently. At this point, Heather and Tommy are no longer together. They broke up about a year after the trial. But their daughter is allowed to visit them regularly, and there are lots of pictures of the two parents with their daughter hugging and playing together. Heather regularly sees her and has full access to Stella. You know, this prison system doesn't sound like they partake in any kind of punishment for the crime. It's unbelievable.
For some reason, I thought that prisons there were super strict. I guess I'm wrong on that one. Do you happen to know where Stella was while they were incarcerated?
Well, she went into a foster system after she turned 2.
Oh, okay.
And was waiting for Heather to get out of prison.
Okay.
Over time, Heather becomes a model prisoner, staging fashion shows for the inmates and learning the local language, and she never shies away from the camera or interviews. Journalists have full access to her. At one point, Heather did an interview and gives a full confession and says Tommy is truly the innocent one and that she alone killed her mother. It's one of her now many versions of the story. In the interview, Heather says, quote, I got this savage idea in my head that I wanted to kill her in a hotel room. I killed her myself, and then I told Tommy that if he did not help me clean the room and get rid of the body, that I would tell the police that he did it. I would pay money to get him arrested. I'm sorry, Tommy Schaefer. I'm sorry. I love you. End quote.
She's trying to look all badass, but doesn't she remember all the texts? It's disgusting.
And even what she says here, I mean, just one little point is that she says she made Tommy help her clean up the room. The room there was blood everywhere.
I was thinking about that too when you said that.
Yeah, nobody cleaned the room, so even your little stupid lie doesn't make sense. Heather's U.S. defense attorney, Mike Leonard, said it was unfortunate that she was making confessions without the advice of counsel. She clearly was attempting to go to bat for Tommy, but Heather spoke to multiple news reporters saying how awful her mother was. She said her mother had multiple personality disorder, was a drug addict, alcoholic, very violent, and she even suggested that her mother was racist. Right. Makes sense, little girl. Can you just make sense for once in your life?
Do you not know who your father was?
Oh, man. Nobody ever saw Sheila be aggressive in any manner toward Heather, except to defend herself from Heather's abuse.
You said Sheila took pictures of the bruises and things that Heather had done to her. I wonder what happened to those.
Well, they had them, because she actually had the police arrest her for that, but then she didn't press charges.
But they still had the pictures. I mean, so
Yeah.
you could have said, yeah, she's violent. Look at the pictures of the bruises that she did to me.
And that's just the one time she documented it.
Wow.
Sheila has never said anything negative about race either. Heather just lies about everything, and that's what the real problem is. Sheila's family is very upset by these allegations. Quote, I don't regret killing my mother, and as evil as that may sound, that's my reality, end quote, says Heather. You know, this is years later, and you'd have to have ice in your veins to continue to say such horrible things about the mother that you abused and eventually you murdered. And to even imply that Sheila was racist is way out there because Heather wouldn't even exist if that were the case.
And she still definitely has some mental issues going on. She needs to get some help.
She's a whack job. Tommy finally breaks his silence and makes his case to the media. He claims to feel an extreme amount of remorse and guilt and wants to pay his dues to society. He wants forgiveness and will do whatever it takes to become a better person. He also talks about how he feels that Heather is responsible for where he ended up, and he says that she's a manipulator. He calls her a monster and says he doesn't want Stella to be around her. Yeah, sounds like the thrill is definitely gone, baby, and the blind can now see.
And that's all it took?
But she sure looked good when she was worth $11 million.
Right?
I don't feel sorry for him. In October 2021, after serving 7 years of her decade-long sentence, Heather Mack is released early from prison for good behavior.
Can I scream right now?
The one time she's good, right? The one time. She is also reunited with her daughter Stella. Heather did not want to return to the U.S. as she had fallen in love with Indonesia and wanted to raise her daughter there. But because she is now a convicted felon, she must be deported back to the U.S.
Good.
So on November 3rd, 2021, a frenzy of reporters were waiting for Heather to land at the Chicago O'Hare Airport to capture her highly anticipated return that gained worldwide media attention. As soon as Heather's feet hit the ground in Chicago, the FBI agents swooped in and arrested the now 26-year-old mother. She was put in handcuffs and driven directly to the Metropolitan Correctional Center. Prosecutors contend that Heather, Tommy, and Robert Bibbs had planned the crime in the U.S., so even with double jeopardy, which means that she could not be charged with the same crime twice, they found a loophole and didn't charge her with murder.
So even though it's in another country, she can't be tried here for that?
No double jeopardy.
Huh. Didn't know it was country to country. Interesting little tidbit.
Instead, they charge her with conspiracy to commit murder. To support their claim, prosecutors released damaging evidence of a phone call from Heather indicating the role she played in actually killing her mother. Heather admitted that she was there and put her hands over Sheila's mouth while Tommy was bludgeoning her to death. When she was asked why she did that, her answer was that Tommy would have been in a lot of trouble if they didn't actually kill her mother at that point. You know, where did she get that from? It sounds like too much TV influence.
Even as a 20-something woman, she still isn't thinking.
No, she's not. Heather is remanded into custody to await trial. Her daughter Stella is sent to live with Heather's cousin in Colorado. The shocking news reverberates all the way back to Bali. Her defense attorney from Bali says, "We were surprised when she came back to America, and then she had to face another trial in America." After spending over 7 years in prison in beautiful, warm Bali, she was now remanded to a 7.5-foot by 10-foot jail cell with no windows or direct sunlight. You know, that's the least of her problems. But you ain't in Bali no more, chica.
Isn't it bad that internally I'm thinking, yes, finally.
Right. Sometimes I think our prison systems here are too lax, but man, she was literally living it up in Bali.
Yeah.
According to her U.S. defense attorney, he says Heather's matured quite a bit, seems confident, and remains optimistic about her trial and being reunited with Stella.
Delusional.
Exactly. On June 16, 2023, Heather decides to cut a deal and agrees to plead guilty on one count of conspiracy to kill a U.S. national instead of taking her chances in trial. Heather was sentenced on January 17, 2024, to 26 years in prison for her role in a conspiracy to murder her mother while they vacationed in Bali.
Don't you see the clouds separate and the sun come out? No.
Yep. Finally, we got a Bali sun here in the U.S. I'm so glad she received a long sentence here in the U.S. as well as the time that she served in Bali. She deserves every single year, and to this day, she has not shown any remorse whatsoever. That's a very dangerous person who can kill like that and feel like it was justified just because, God forbid, her mom tried to parent her. The longer she's locked up, the better for society and, in my opinion, better for her daughter Stella. That child certainly doesn't need that type of madness influencing her life.
Unfortunately, it's probably going to follow her to a certain degree, though.
I hope not. She really hasn't been with her much at all, except for the first 2 years. Robert Bibbs also pled guilty to conspiracy to commit the foreign murder of a U.S. citizen and received 9 years in prison. When Tommy finally completes his 18-year sentence and is also forced to leave Indonesia, he will be facing the same charges. But for now, Tommy remains in Bali. He claims to be more spiritual now, and he's actually turned down the possibility of parole because he feels like he needs to serve his full time to learn his lesson. Sounds to me like he's doing his best to stay in that sweet little prison setup in Indonesia and is trying to avoid coming back to the States. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if he commits another crime and tries to extend his sentence there. That would be my game plan.
Well, it may not be first class, but it's better than a no sunlight cement cell.
Sounds way better than that.
Wow, what a crazy story. All the stories we do, I'm still shocked.
I'm still shocked that I'm shocked, but sometimes, you read about people and you're just like, how is it possible that these people are walking amongst us? I don't get it.
And the way they think just boggles the mind.
They have everything and it's not enough. I'll never get that.
No. Well, thank you for bringing this to us. It was crazily interesting.
You're very welcome. I thought so too.
We want to thank all of our listeners for listening, and remember to take care and don't forget to let your grimaginations run wild. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
We just want to thank you all for sharing your time with us. And if you'd like to send in your creepy little grim bits, we would love to hear your personal stories, interests, and suggestions. Please email them to grimwitwithdimwits@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at grimwitwithdimwits, X at grimwitwithdimwits, Facebook grimwitwithdimwits, and YouTube grimwitwithdimwits. Join us every Monday for new episodes, and feel free to share us with your grim-loving friends.
We would really appreciate if you would take a minute to rate and review. 5-star ratings go a long way and would really help us out. Until then, we would love it if you'd come back next week to delve with us into the strange and unusual things we just can't wrap our skulls around.